worked on this late last night and overnight in the wake of the the suspension by Disney and ABC of Jimmy Kimmel. Kimmel made remarks, you all probably have heard them by now, on his program on Monday night, suggesting that the killer of Charlie Kirk was MAGA, and that MAGA was trying to deny the fact that he was part of MAGA. It was a silly thing to say at best, and it offended some people, and it offended the head of the FCC, very aggressive man, whose place in the world in this administration is really, as I said, aggressive. He does not believe that liberal media, particularly those that have federal licenses like ABC, should be able to be biased. And he's been pretty clear about that. Since the Kimmel suspension, there's been no word, at least as we speak to you right now, from Kimmel, no real explanation from ABC and Disney about why they did it, but an outcry from some network affiliate owners. And like that, Kimmel was not allowed back on the air. Democrats are really upset. The Hollywood unions are upset. A lot of Democratic politicians are upset. This has become a post-Charlie Kirk assassination stress test of sorts for our culture, our corporations, and questions of government power. It's an incredible case study. The core issues are pretty basic in the modern era, at least. Who controls speech? What kind of regulatory pressure can the administration put on people? What kind of leverage do network affiliate owners have? These big companies that own ABC affiliates, in this case, all over the country. And I think maybe the biggest project here is Team Trump's attempt to crack liberals' hold on Hollywood, and entertainment. This is a massive issue, and one that even before Charlie was killed, even before this Kimmel thing, was a clear project, both of Team Trump and their associates. Let's be clear, the left thinks this is horrible. They think, once again, ABC has caved. Huge backlash from, as I said, the Hollywood unions. Gavin Newsom spoken out, Ben Stiller, the American Civil Liberties Union. A lot of comedians are starting to come out. They don't like it. They consider this a basic First Amendment issue. Let's take them at their word. This isn't about Trump derangement syndrome or hatred of Donald Trump or even Kimmel himself. For a lot of these people on the left, if you take them at their word, they don't like to see the FCC chair out there saying this is what Kimmel said was inappropriate and that something needs to be done. And they don't like what they consider to be a chilling effect. They don't believe that Bob Iger, the head of Walt Disney, suspended Kimmel because he was truly offended. And by the way, this is a rare confluence of people on the left and the right. I talked, emailed, texted with so many people since about 6 Eastern time last night and into this morning. What did they see? People in MAGA, people in Hollywood. And no one thinks Bob Iger was actually offended or that Bob Iger suspended Kimmel because he thought it was, quote unquote, the right thing to do. They all think he was responding to pressure. People on the right say, great, glad you responded to the pressure. As I said, people on the left think this is horrible and one of the most high-profile signs that the Trump project of putting pressure on Hollywood and the media to act in a way that they didn't in the past is working. So what does the White House say? The White House says these companies should police themselves. We don't need to play a role. This is all happening because the market is speaking. These affiliate ownerships, Sinclair and Nexstar, they're owned by folks who are not of the far left. They're right or center right. And what they said is, we're not going to air the Kimmel show. We're so offended. Our constituencies are offended. Their stations are not exclusively, but a lot of them are in red states and more rural places, not big cities on the coast. And they said, we're not going to air it. That's a distribution problem for ABC because Kimmel doesn't air on the ABC network. It goes from the network to these local stations. And if these massive owners of local stations say we're not going to air it, that's a PR problem. It's also a distribution problem. And the relationship between the affiliates and the networks has changed dramatically over the last several decades. But it's still the case that that's where a lot of their distribution comes from. The FCC commissioner, Brendan Carr, he's an interesting guy. He's to me one of the most fascinating people in the Trump administration. He's previously worked at the FCC. He's now the chair, and he's outspoken. He's got a history of saying things on social media and at events that, no, the government should not be deciding what kind of content private companies do. But he's always made a distinction, and this is a distinction rooted in the law, between places like this program or the New York Times that don't have federal licenses. Places like ABC have licenses. That's the way our system works, because they have broadcast needs to get access to the airways using the spectrum. And that means they've got an obligation to serve the public interest. Now, for decades, the left said, well, the public interest is served by doing left-wing news and left-wing entertainment. And what had been the case throughout the 10 years of Donald Trump dominating the national stage, but particularly in this term, is the right is no longer saying, yeah, that's fine. We'll play on an unlevel playing field where comedians on TV and late night can generally be biased against Republicans. We'll play on an unlevel playing field where ABC, CBS, and NBC will be biased. They're saying, just as they are with universities, just as they're saying with law firms, we're not going to sit back and just be suckers and let these liberal institutions that tilt away from us dramatically, and in some cases they believe decisively, do whatever they want. So here is Brendan Carr on Fox on Wednesday night after the decision was announced that Kimmel was going to be suspended.
To these market forces, and a lot of these affiliate groups said, to your point, we're tired of carrying this stuff. Late night shows, something's gone seriously awry there. They went from going for applause, from laugh lines to applause lines. They went from being court jesters that would make fun of everybody in power to being court clerics and enforcing a very narrow political ideology. We at the FCC are going to enforce the public interest obligation. If there's broadcasters out there that don't like it, they can turn their license into the FCC. But that's our job. And again, we're making some progress now.
So public interest obligation. As a journalist, I love this story. It's fascinating. As a citizen, there's two competing equities here that I'm really concerned about, how they interact. On the one hand, you've heard me say it before, the bias of Hollywood, the bias of big dominant media, it's not served the country well. It's not served them well as businesses in the modern era, but it's not right for democracy. On the other hand, I don't like the thought of a government regulator using the power of the federal government, the rhetorical power, in the case of administration, not shy about using power to, threaten regulatory action one way or another. I'm not crazy about a government regulator saying what Brendan Carr is saying. And I got a little backup from my point of view from Britt Hume, as you all know, one of the people I respect the most in media, and someone who thinks a lot about these complicated equities. Britt tweeted this morning, thinking about these same issues. He said, the First Amendment does not protect performers like Jimmy Kimmel from being canceled by their private sector employers. I agree with that. But then Britt also wrote, but I would have liked the outcome a lot better if the chairman of the FCC had not involved himself in it. I couldn't agree more. The private sector can speak, and their customers and their partners, like their affiliate owners like Nexstar, they can speak, they can balk and say, no, we're not gonna air this program, and we don't think you should, and then suspend a guy, maybe not even bring him back. But when the government gets involved in saying, as Carr said, in advance with Benny Johnson, in advance of the suspension, when he said ABC can do this the easy way or the hard way, that sends a clear signal. I'm not crazy about that. I'm not crazy about the FCC commissioner. And again, I find the guy to be fascinating. I find him to be brilliant. I find his willingness to engage in the public dialogue. He does lots of interviews on TV and at events and on social. I find all that great. So I'm a fan of his style. I'm a fan of a lot of his point of view. But telling a network, in effect, we don't like this speech. We don't like this exercise of the First Amendment. When the guy made an ill-informed statement, an offensive statement to many, that's what the First Amendment's for. That's what it's for. This is not going to be a big courtroom challenge. This is not some case that's going to go to the Supreme Court. It's about regulation, about intimidation, and it's also about corporate risk management. Attention, everybody 64 years or older, this is an important announcement. The Department of Justice recently sued 3 major Medicare brokers for claiming they were unbiased while allegedly pushing people into plans that got them the biggest kickbacks. It's true, so many insurance agents, they can't be trusted, but you can't necessarily rely on government resources either. So what to do? Here's what I recommend. I want to tell you about a group called Chapter. Chapter was started by people who went through this experience personally after their own parents were pushed into the wrong Medicare program by an agent who was more focused on commissions than on good care. Chapter has a very simple mission. They want to give every American the honest, straightforward Medicare advice that they need and that they deserve. And here's what makes them different. They're the only Medicare advisor that compares every plan across the country, not just a handful. That saves their clients an average of $1,100 a year. There's really no reason not to call. It's quick, it's easy, and they can review your options in less than 20 minutes. If you're already in the right plan, they'll tell you that. But if there's a better plan, they'll help you make the switch. This could be the most important call you make this year. Dial pound 250 and say Chapter Medicare to get peace of mind. Again, that's pound 250 and say the words Chapter Medicare.